Vinjus at Phantasialand is one of the weirdest coasters in the world. In fact, it's two entirely separate coasters. This is a pair of Mauer spinning coasters. One is named Fear and the other is named Force. Both are located indoors and feature a series of tricks that make the experience memorable. Some may call them gimmicks, but they really enhance the experience, and I'll explain why in this review. Before going in deep, I want to say that Vinjus is best if you don't know about the specific tricks prior to riding. That's how I experienced the coaster for my first time, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. And that's how Phantasialand wants it too, because all the tricks are hidden out of sight. Therefore, I will consider any of the enclosed sections in this ride as spoilers, and I'll give a warning before discussing any of these sections. And I also want to give a warning that this ride's RCDB page lists the tricks at the bottom under the facts section, so beware. Vinjus opened up in 2002. This was a very important and much needed addition for Phantasialand. Just 1 year prior, in 2001, a massive fire damaged half of Phantasialand's coasters, leading to the closure and removal of both Guybergsbahn and Grand Canyon Bahn. Vinjus immediately stepped in to fill the coaster void. This coaster was accompanied by a brand new themed area in Voos Town. This is a separate indoor section of the fantasy area of the park. The land is themed to an underground city of the fictional Voozan people. The whole area has a whimsical, dreamlike vibe to it with the ornate architecture and odd rides. And Vinjus adds a ton of energy to the land. You can hear the delighted screams of guests as their colorful cars twirl above you. Both coasters have an iconic helix around the weird Tittle Tattle Tree ride in the center. The perimeter of the building has some of the ride's larger drops. Then you can also explore the upper levels of Voos Town and get shockingly close to the ride's hairpin turns. But for as much as the ride shows, the special tricks are hidden behind walls and darkness. The dark black track helps conceal these features. The ride's entrance is tucked in the back of Voos Town, but it has undergone some changes in recent years. Originally, the split point for these two tracks was at the start of the queue line. This was recently moved towards the end of the queue line. This makes sense though because both sides almost always seem to have similar weights. There were two key changes during 2020 and 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Guests had to queue for the attraction outdoors, and it was random which side you were assigned. And that last part was a pretty big deal. These two rides are not clones or mirror images. Each side has its own unique path and set of tricks. The two tracks are also immensely helpful with capacity. Like the other Mauer spinners, this ride features individual cars seating just 4 riders. If you have been to Disneyland Paris or Hershey Park, you know just how slow a single Mauer spinning coaster's line can move. Both sides of Vinjus have plenty of cars and speedy operations you'd expect from Phantasialand. Even in the peak summer months, the line is usually no more than 20 to 30 minutes most days. Pairs of guests sit back to back facing outwards. I prefer this orientation over the spinners facing guests inwards because I think it offers superior visuals. The cars are a bit cramped though. The seats aren't my favorite because you're positioned extremely low with your knees above your waist. This can cause the lap bar restraint to rest in a weird spot against your legs, but the restraint itself is fine and doesn't cause any comfort issues. Both sides are great, and I'd recommend trying both, but I do prefer the Fear side. That seems to be the consensus among most coaster enthusiasts. Regardless of which side you choose, I do recommend sitting that you leave the station going backwards. It only impacts the first elements, but it makes those elements even better. I'll start with the side I prefer in Fear. Once dispatched, you move forwards. Please skip ahead to the time shown on your screen to avoid the first indoor section. You then move forwards into a dark elevator. It briskly raises you to your max height of 57 feet or 17 meters. About halfway up the lift, the track starts to tilt, and it stays in that position when you reach the top. If you dispatched riding forwards, you'll be tilted downwards. If you dispatched going backwards, you'll be pointed upwards. As you tilt, the music builds to a crescendo, and interestingly, the music was a snippet from the old Disney film Dinosaur. You then hear an ominous voice say, "Vinjus Fear," and you're released into the main layout. You're sent down a sizable drop in the dark. You can see some light at the end of the tunnel going forwards, but you cannot see how long the drop will last if you're going in reverse, so you get this fun free-falling sensation. You then leave the enclosed section and head up a giant camelback. You have some surprising speed over this hill, and you get some decent floater airtime on the drop. And if you're going backwards, you'll also get a bit of that free fall sensation too. Plus, there's a cool head chopper with a walkway on the descent. You then sharply rise upwards, getting a pop of airtime. The vehicles then unlock and start to spin. This next bit is a series of hairpin turns high above the ground. While your vehicle won't have too much speed, the tight turns induce some great spinning. This leads to a helix that circles around a flat ride. You pick up some decent speed here. You don't spin as quickly as the prior section, but you do tend to get a more prolonged rotation while also getting some light positive Gs. You then twist into a mid-course brake run. You'll then head back indoors, so skip ahead to the time on screen if you want to avoid this part. You then have a decent drop in the dark that has some zip to it. You then navigate a horseshoe turn. It is quite disorienting in the dark, and you sort of stall out at the top so you get a pinch of weightlessness. You're then spit out of a frog's mouth. You roll through another mid-course brake run and head right back into the darkness. The rest of Fear is hidden, so the timestamp on screen will basically bring you to my Force review. Fear then has a little dip indoors, heads up a little incline, and comes to a very abrupt stop while still inclined. You hear another snippet from the dinosaur film. Then, like a seesaw, the track tilts upwards to connect you with the track on the opposite side. Before you have any time to process what just happened, you're then released back down an incline. It's not super steep, but it's in the dark and has that free fall sensation if you're going backwards. You then have a final few turns in the dark that cause some final spinning, and then you hit the brakes, but Vinja still has one more trick up its sleeve. As you head towards the unload platform, you have this weird bounce track. As you move over this segment of track, it quickly dips down and right back up. It doesn't offer any forces, but it's a very surprising maneuver I haven't seen in any other ride. This must have been particularly shocking in 2002 because drop tracks were not a thing yet. You then return to the unload platform, ending the 1,523 foot or 465 meter long coaster. Now let's talk about the Force side. Some parts of this section may be repetitive if you listen to the Fear section, but that's deliberate. It's just in case someone only experienced one side and doesn't want to spoil the other. Once dispatched, you move forwards. Please skip ahead to the time shown on your screen to avoid the first indoor section. You then move forwards into a dark elevator. It briskly raises you to your max height of 57 feet or 17 meters. About halfway up the lift, the track starts to tilt, and it stays in that position when you reach the top. If you dispatched riding forwards, you'll be tilted downwards. If you dispatched going backwards, you'll be pointed upwards. As you tilt, the music builds to a crescendo, and interestingly, the music was a snippet from the old Disney film Dinosaur. You then hear an ominous voice say Vinja's Force, and you're released back into the main layout. You're sent down a sizable drop in darkness. You can see some light at the end of the tunnel going forwards, but you can't see how long the drop will last if you're going in reverse, so you get this fun free-falling sensation. You then leave the enclosed section and sharply twist upwards. No airtime, but the turn at the top gets super tight, so you'll get some decent laterals here. You then navigate a slalom section. You'll start to spin here, and you'll spin quite fast. Plus, you'll get some nice views overlooking Voostown. This leads into a section of hairpin turns. As with the Fear side, the car isn't moving too fast, but you'll continue to spin just like you did through the prior section. Next is the helix around the Tittle Tattle tree. You pick up some decent speed here. Again, you're not going to spin as quickly as the other section, but you do tend to get a more prolonged rotation while also getting some light positives. Vinjas then cruises through a mid-course brake run. Rather than heading indoors, you head down a sizable swooping drop. It's fine going forwards, but it's sweet going backwards because you can't see where you're going next. You then have a bunny hill. It offers some weak floater airtime, plus that familiar falling sensation if you experience it backwards. You then head indoors for the remainder of Force, so skip ahead to the time shown on screen if you want to avoid spoilers for this. After heading indoors, you stop on this piece of track. The track then tilts you sideways at an angle to align with another piece of track. The car is then released. You have a small but okay drop, followed by some weak turns. You do spin a bit, but it can't compensate for the rest of the ride being quite weak at the end. You then hit the brakes. As you head towards the unload platform, you have this weird bounce track. As you move over this segment of track, it quickly dips down and right back up. It doesn't offer any forces, but it's a very surprising maneuver I haven't seen in any other ride. You then return to the unload platform, ending the 1,345 foot or 410 meter long coaster. Both sides are very smooth. The tracking is perfect, but there are one or two breaks that are pretty abrupt. So what would I rate Vingeous? I would give both sides of the spinning coaster an 8 out of 10. This is a great ride. It has some of the elements you'd expect from this type of ride. You have some sections with strong spinning, and a few drops that are sweet if taken in reverse. But those hidden and trick elements are what makes the ride truly memorable. There are some one-of-a-kind elements here that'll leave you confused in the best way possible. That is why it's not only the weirdest spinning coaster, but it's also one of the best. Those tricks aren't just gimmicks, they really add to the ride. So those are my thoughts on Vingeous of Phantasialand. What are your thoughts on this coaster? Which side do you prefer? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canobie Coaster. Thanks for watching.